Ladies and gentlemen, here we are with the Frost Mage. We're going to take a look at this thing. Has it improved since the alpha? Yes, it has, and we're definitely going to go over that. But the main thing I want to end up bringing to you is Frost Mage is here. Is it the best? That's going to be debatable on how you really want to play. So let's go ahead and start off with the abilities. Alright guys, so we're sitting here at the Mage class hall, and we are going to go over the abilities. You still have Blink. This is going to work the same as on live, 15-second cooldown, teleports you forward 20 yards or until reaching an obstacle. This thing still gets hung up on the smallest of things, guys, so it's good, but you definitely have to have a clear path before you use it. Blizzard, a lot different than what you normally end up seeing. Slightly different look on this also, but as you can see, it's got a cast time. There's not a whole lot special going on with this thing. Now, what makes this thing nice is the fact that with some talents, this is going to help increase your damage just a little bit on an AoE situation. But we'll get into those a little bit more, but currently it's only doing some minor frost damage over 8 seconds and reducing movement speed by 30% for 15 seconds. It does have a cooldown to it, not a very long one, and it does have a cast time now, which really, guys, it doesn't feel bad. But having a cast time on something that you're used to having instant really kind of sucks. But hey, it's good to go. Cone of Cold, we'll go ahead and use that. Cool new little effect on there. It's going to end up doing very little frost damage also, and it's going to have reduced movement speed by 70% on any enemy in front of you for 5 seconds. Really neat ability, guys, and again, if you've played Frost before, this is just so you can do a little bit extra kiting. Nothing too great about this. Conjure Refreshments, hey, you get to make food. You are back to being food bitch for the whole entire group. Yay, yay. Counterspell, your Interrupt. Again, just like any mage, if you've ever played one before, this is in a very long cooldown, 24 seconds to be exact, and it only locks them out for 6 seconds. Nothing great. Ebon Bolt, on the other hand, this is your artifact ability, and this thing plays fairly nice. The key to this item is to make sure you're using it when you have no Fingers of Frost procs, which you'll see whenever I go to cast it right now. It does a decent amount of damage, not great, but then you're going to get your Finger of Frost procs, and you'll be able to end up automatically going into 2 Ice Lances. Helps out a ton. Spell animation wise, it's alright, and it does fairly decent damage. 45-second cooldown on that bad boy with a 2.35 second cast. Frost Nova, good old Frost Nova, lock him in place. It's going to do the exact same thing, but as you can see, it doesn't last very long if someone else is hitting it. But it does freeze them, and with the freeze effect, again, Ice Lance is going to get its bonus damage off of it. Double damage. Then you've got Frostbolt. Frostbolt is your bread and butter. This is your main spamming ability, just like most mages are going to end up having this. And it's going to end up doing moderate frost damage and slow the target by 30% for 15 seconds. Really, guys? Nothing too horrible. You just end up casting this bad boy, and you're gonna get your charges here. No. Really. Simple. This is your main spam ability. Use it. Frozen Orb. Frozen Orb has had a interesting, different change, and it still works exactly the same. It does the line, goes forward, does its damage, but it's fairly weak damage. What it does is it's going to deal a decent amount of damage over 10 seconds to all nearby enemy targets. Now, it's not a lot of damage, but it does grant 1 charge of Fingers of Frost when it first damages a target. This currently seems to be broke. I have not seen these Fingers of Frost charges come up at all whenever I cast this thing. And, I mean, I just cast it. You notice that no Fingers of Frost procced. It doesn't appear to be working correctly right now. So keep that in mind, but it is supposed to, at least by the tooltip and what it used to do, grant you 1 charge of Fingers of Frost whenever it procs. They might have removed it and just not updated the tooltip. Hard telling, guys, but I'm letting you know right now, this thing, and I'm waiting for it to come off cooldown so we can test it again because it did not work. Alright, tossing it out there, no Fingers of Frost, and it did its initial damage. So something to keep in mind. Then you've got Glacial Spike. Alright, this is a talent. We'll get into that here in just a few minutes. Ice Barrier, exactly the same, guys. If you played this before, it's a pretty nice shield that you're going to end up using. It works really great, especially whenever you're going through and you're doing your questing. Just a general absorption, guys. It keeps you from having to have so much downtime, but just make sure you're using it every 25 seconds to off cooldown to keep it up, because you do take a lot of damage as Frost, a lot more damage than what Fire does. Ice Block, hey, look, I'm a block of ice. No damage can end up occurring whenever you end up casting this. It's got a 5-minute recharge on it, and it's usually only 1 stack, but now it's 2 because of a talent that I've got. But again, guys, it's just going to encase you, and then you're also going to get a debuff call, Hypothermia, preventing you from recasting Ice Block for 30 seconds. This is so you can't back-to-back the healing from the talent, more or less. So, again, it's just a good survivability cooldown to save your ass. Ice Flow's talent, Ice Lance. This works exactly the same, guys. Now, it does have a little bit of a tweak than what you would normally end up seeing. It's going to basically do the same thing. It's going to fling your shard here, alright? And with that shard, what you're looking at is just very minor damage. Very, very minor damage. And then I've got Splitting Ice, so it does a certain amount of damage to a second nearby target. It's alright. Icy Veins is your cooldown. 3 minutes. Accelerates your spellcasting for 20 seconds, granting 30% haste and preventing damage from delaying your spellcasting. So, no special effect really. That's what you end up getting. Not the greatest. It does show up on there. It looks meh. That's about all I can say. It looks meh. But you do have an effect with that ability. Invisibility works the same, guys. 5-minute cooldown. Just takes you out of combat after a few seconds and makes you invisible. Same as on live. Mirror Image is a talent. Polymorph Sheep, well, it does exactly what it says, guys. It turns them into a sheep. This is your CC, and it works on beasts, humanoids, or critters. And it lasts for 50 seconds. That's it. Again, if you've played a mage before, you definitely know all about sheeping for your CC. You still have your portals. Currently, there's only Stormwind and Darnassus available. Slow Fall, it's still active. Basically, it does exactly what it says and allows you to fall slowly, or whichever group member that you have targeted, for 30 seconds. Spell Steal does exactly what it says. Basically, if you're going to have your debuffs that end up showing up on your target whenever it's being attacked, and it'll end up putting up buffs also. If you see a larger squared buff up there, you can usually spell steal it and take that buff for yourself. Remember this, because you are definitely going to need it for your artifact quest, no matter which one you go as. Just remember, guys, spell steal is important, and this effect will last a maximum of 2 minutes. Basically, if the duration on there is under 2 minutes, it's going to take that duration. If it's over, let's say it's a 5-minute effect, it'll only be 2 minutes. So it does cut it back down. Summon Water Elemental. Yeah, that's going to be this little dude down here that's still shooting blasts. He's going to do the exact same thing, guys. But they did end up doing something very nice for the Water Elemental. They had Freeze on there for a while, but they did take away Water Jet. They have brought Water Jet back, so you can end up working that back in. And what's Water Jet going to do? Basically, when you cast this, the Mage's Frost Bolts that hit will also end up giving you Fingers of Frost, and it looks pretty decent. And you can see he's casting it, and then boom, there's the Fingers of Frost whenever it hits. Was that optimal? Hell no. Usually you're going to want to end up casting Water Jet when you're almost completely done with the Frostbolt. That way you can get a total of 2 charges. But we're going to move on, guys. You do have some teleports left. You'll notice 3 of them in here, and one of them is to your class hall. You are one of the only specs, or classes, I should say, that still ends up having a teleport instead of having to find a portal. Time Warp, Bloodlust, Heroism, all the same stuff. Increases haste by 30% for 40 seconds for all party or raid members. And then we're going to go into the passives, guys. Brain Freeze. It's passive Frostbolt has a 10% chance to reset the remaining cooldown on Frozen Orb. So instead of it being Frostfire Bolt like you're used to on live currently, Frostfire Bolt no longer exists. It is gone. Absolutely out of here. But you will eventually end up getting the Brain Freeze proc. I'm seeing if I can actually get it. 10%'s pretty low chance. And let's fire it off just to make sure. Maybe I can get it, maybe not. Anyways, guys, it'll do another ability up top here to show you, and you can watch in the gameplay. You'll more than likely see it pop up, but it'll do like the Frostfire one does and put another indicator up above your character that shows you it is ready, it has been reset. And with Frozen Orb being on a minute cooldown, it's kind of nice to end up having. It would be even better if the Fingers of Frost proc was working on it. So what is Fingers of Frost? Passive. Frostbolt has a 15% chance, and Blizzard and Frozen Orb damage has a 5% chance to grant a Fingers of Frost. Fingers of Frost charges cause your next Ice Lance to deal 140% increased damage and deal damage as if it were frozen for a total increase of 380%. So instead of this just being a double damage, alright, this is going to do 380% damage. Unlike a normal frozen target. So Fingers of Frost are very, very important to this spec. Frost Armor, passive, increases haste by 8% and causes enemies who strike you to have movement speed slowed by 30% for 15 seconds. Haste is a very, very high performer in this, guys. I see Haste Mastery being a very high combo, and we'll get into the Mastery right now. It's still Icicles. Passive, when you damage enemies with Frostbolt, 31.6, depending on your mastery again, of the damage done is stored in an Icicle for up to 1 minute. Now you'll see I'll cast, and all of a sudden there's an Icicle. They have changed the animation. It actually looks like an Icicle now. And you're going to end up building this thing up, and till you get 5 of them. Now when you get a 5th one, alright, now you'll cast a 6th, and one of them will take off. The first one will take off. Alright? And it'll keep doing that until you end up either sending them out, depending on how you spec, with Ice Lance. Alright, if you get a Fingers of Frost charge, you'll send it out, and all of these will fire off. Or if you have Glacial Spike, and it'll do that, and then it'll also hit him. Basically, it's going to... We'll go over Glacial Spike in the talents, but it's going to do an initial damage, and then all the Icicle damage will be added in with it. Really solid damage. And then Shatter. Multiplies the critical strike chance of your spells against frozen targets by 1.5%, and it adds an additional 50% critical strike chance. So, when something's frozen, guys, basically you're going to want to use Ice Lance most of the time, just to get that additional damage. Ice Lance hits like a truck on frozen targets, and it's made to be the go-to, especially as an instant cast. You can get more of them off. But that's going to be the abilities, guys. Let's go ahead and roll on out to the talents. Alright, so here's the talents, guys. Level 15. Very first one, Ray of Frost. Interesting talent here. It's on a 1 minute cooldown. But for the next 10 seconds, you can channel a beam of icy power at an enemy, slowing movement by 50% and dealing small frost damage every 0.8 seconds. This is reduced by haste, though. That 0.8 seconds can come down to 0.1 second or whatever. If you use this thing during Time Warp, it's going to start wrecking. And here's the reason why. Each time Ray of Frost deals damage, its damage increases by 20%. I have had this thing cap out, and it will cap out to 10. Alright, so you're doing 200% additional damage with this thing. And you can just watch the numbers. I'll go ahead and click this thing, and you can watch. And we're not using any haste buff or not, but progressively you are seeing this thing just go up and up and up, and it can crit, as you see there. And it's just going to keep going. If you've got a chance to sit down and do this, haste does not remove that 10-second window. So you can time this with Time Warp, and you can also time it with Icy Veins to really ramp that damage up and get some really solid numbers. The problem I have with it is it's on a 1 minute cooldown, and during that 10 seconds that you're channeling, you're no longer building icicles or building any other additional damaging aspects. It's straight Ray of Frost. If you have enough haste, Ray of Frost more than likely will take over because of how hard it can hit and it can crit. Just something to think about when you're going through. This may be an alternate choice for most people. Then you have Lonely Winter. Goodbye, Elemental. I hated you anyways. Basically, this is going to get rid of your Elemental and increase most of your Frost abilities. Frostbolt, Ice Lance, Frozen Orb, and Icicles will deal 25% increased damage. This can definitely stack up, and this may be another way to end up going. But with the way that you can end up tricking the Fingers of Frost procs through Water Jet, it coming back, it no longer, in my other video, this was the main way to end up going. It no longer takes priority because you can now use your pet to bring out those Fingers of Frost yet again. And then you have Bone Chilling. This is the one that I've taken to quite a bit more because it does have a ramp up time, but once you get ramped up, it changes the gameplay a little bit to where you're weaving your Frost Bolts in to most of your other damaging abilities just to keep this buff up. And what it'll do is it'll stack up to 16 times. When it's up to 16 times, it'll give you 8% increased damage over 6 seconds. This buff just keeps going. 6 seconds, guys. And if you get it up there, that's a solid 8% that you are constantly keeping up. As long as you can keep casting. It's not on the target, it is on you. So Frostbolt is going to be your main way of keeping this up. The other ability that helps keep this up is Blizzard. If you have to AoE, you'll be at 16 stacks in no time. So this is also going to increase the damage of Blizzard. Really solid choice, guys. It was good for both AoE and single target. So that's why I ended up deciding to go with this guy instead of the Ray of Frost. So level 30, Shimmer. This is interesting. I enjoy this thing. It's just the same as Blink, guys, but what it's going to do is it's going to be on a 15-second recharge. It gives you 2 charges. If I can get this idiot water elemental to quit attacking. Stop. Stop it. I demand you to disappear. And this is why I dislike the water elemental. He never listens. So, Shimmer is going to give you 2 charges. Alright, so it's basically a double blink. And I just blinked into the wall. And it's also going to give you some direction. So you don't have to... you don't have to really worry about it too much. It's 2 charges. It's got a 15-second recharge. Gives you a lot of extra movement, and there's a way of increasing the amount of healing you end up getting later on because of this in your actual artifact ability, and we'll go over it, and it basically makes it to where Blink heals you for so much. This is going to give you some really good sustainability. Cauterize works the same as on live. If you end up getting fatal damage, you're going to go to 35% health, and then you're going to burn for 28% of your maximum health over 6 seconds. While burning, though, they ended up adding the movement speed, the blazing speed in, which is going to increase your run speed also into this spec by 150% for 6 seconds. Really nice to end up seeing. Feels a little more PvP-ish than anything, but that extra burning, that burning sensation, really it doesn't fit for any questing or PvE. Possibly later on in some raid situations this may take over. And then you've got Cold Snap. This was the best for questing, at least in my opinion. And again, like I said, once you end up getting Shimmer and the talent off, or the artifact ability, this will more than likely take over. But Ice Block currently now has 2 charges and also heals you for 3% of your maximum health every 1 second, so you can get 30% of your health back if you're in an oh shit scenario of pulling too much, which happens a lot on a mage. You sometimes get a bit greedy, and next thing you know, you've got way too much and you're dead. 45 mirror images, 2-minute cooldown, creates 3 copies of you, basically, that end up casting. Hits like a truck right now, very good 2-minute cooldown. Rune of Power, a lot different than what you would normally remember. it's going to drop it underneath you. You no longer have the targeting reticle. It just drops it right where you're at, and it's going to give you an increase of 50% spell power for 10 seconds. Not bad. I mean, not spell power, but 50% damage, guys. Spell damage. And it's going to... It's alright. And then you got Incanter's Flow. It's going to act the same to where it's going to build up to that 20% increased damage and then diminish down by 4% cycling over 10 second period. So the first 5 seconds it's going to build up to that 20%, and then the next 5 seconds it'll be back down to 4%. And it just goes back and forth that way, guys. It's a interesting deal, but timing is going to be everything, and if you just don't want to worry about a buff or another cooldown or anything, you can always take this and it's going to possibly work out. Or if you can get your timing just right on these longer cast times, you can time it to where you're going to be at that peak moment every single time, and that'll end up helping a lot. It may tie well with Glacial Spike also, but it's just boring to me, so I didn't go with it. I went with the mirror images because they also take threat in certain situations, and it helps. Level 60, Ice Nova. This is still a pretty good talent. It causes a whirling... It causes a whirl of ice, and we'll go ahead and cast it. There you go. And it's going to do some decent damage to all enemies within 8 yards, and freezing them in place for 2 seconds. The primary target takes 100% increased damage. Again, it's alright. It's nothing amazing. It's an extra button if you want it. But outside of that, it's not a lot of damage. It doesn't seem to help out that much. And then you've got Frozen Touch. Now, this is an interesting one, and this helps on the Fingers of Frost procs. If you decide to go Lonely Winter, I'm going to say go with Frozen Touch with that one also. But it's going to immediately generate 2 charges of Fingers of Frost, and it is instant on a 30-second cooldown, and it will pair nicely in burst specs with Ebon Bolt, which is on a 45-second cooldown, but you're also going to get another 2 Fingers of Frost. So, again, it is a very nice piece to end up going with. Splitting Ice, this one's just fun, guys, and it feels like what the Frost Mage is intended to do, and that's cleave. Your Ice Lance and Icicles now hit a second nearby target for 75% of the damage. That also works with Glacial Spike. Basically, when you cast Glacial Spike, it also ends up doing a cleave because that is Icicle damage. It's considered Icicle damage. So it splits also. Really nice to end up seeing the pairing with it. And 75, we've got Ice Flows. This is my go-to, guys, and it's always going to be on any spec of Mage I play if they're all sitting like this one. And the reason for it is because ABCs of casters always be casting. That's the ABCs, guys. And if you've got to move and you don't end up using Ice Flows, you're losing out on DPS. You get 3 charges to begin with, and when you cast this, you're going to be able to end up casting and continue moving with your spell. It's a simple choice, guys. If you need to get out of something, it's one button and go, and you're still doing damage. This is why I promote this thing so much. It takes a while to get used to, but Ice Flows is a good mage bread and butter. And then we'll go to Ring of Frost. Works the same as on live, guys. Summons a ring and freezes things. PvP. PvP or mass crowd control, one of the two. But it's going to drop that ring for 10 seconds at the target locations. If any of the enemies enter the ring, they're going to be frozen and incapacitated for 10 seconds. Limit 10 targets. So, again, like I said, mass PvP, world PvP, it works really good. Or if you're just trying to, again, mass AoE or crowd control, this will end up working. And then you got Ice Ward. Frost Nova now has 2 charges, okay. Boring. Just real boring with that, guys. It's good, I guess, if you're trying to corral or, again, CC. But it's not going to beat out Ice Flows for the movement. I mean, really, if you got to end up casting something and take off, this is going to be the way to end up going for most situations. Then at level 90, you've got Frost Bomb. This thing is making a return. It's got a cast time, though. This is the shitty part. It's got a cast time. It's no longer instant. but it places a frost bomb on the target for 12 seconds. Limit of 1 target. Your ice lance that benefit from shatter will trigger or release a wave of freezing ice, dealing right around 18,000 frost damage, and then a decent amount of frost damage to the rest of the targets within 10 yards. 12 seconds though, guys. It's really... It's not that great. I mean, it's not that great unless you're doing a heavy AoE. And then for single target, I found Unstable Magic to be, even though it is an RNG base, it seemed to be a little bit more on the promoted side, a little bit higher. But its passive, Frostbolt, has a 20% chance to explode on impact, dealing 50% additional damage to the target and all other enemies within 8 yards. Still has the cleave factor, but at the same time, it's not going to interrupt your rotation. It's not going to mess with anything, and it's just passive damage. You know, RNG takes a wheel. This is controlled, but it really messes up your rotation on what you need to be doing unless you are made to destroy a bunch of adds. And same thing with this one. Arctic Gale, passive, increases Blizzard's damage by 30% and its area of effect by 20%. So, here's your normal size. Here's your industrial size. Alright. Not that big of an area. Really, the damage on it is going to be nice. What it boosted up to is 39,000 over 8 seconds compared to 30,000. So you got an extra 9,000 per tick on or over that course of the period. Again, mass AoE, sure, but the only one that seems suitable for single target is going to be Unstable Magic. Level 100, Thermal Void. Casting Ice Lance extends your Icy Veins by 2 seconds. This is going to be RNG heavy like crazy, considering you've got a 20-second window in here, and each one of those is going to increase it, but it's only going to affect you every 3 minutes for 20 seconds. Or, you know, whatever you end up extending it to. And casting Ice Lance on its own outside of a hot streak, you can, or not hot streak, wow, wrong spec, outside of your Fingers of Frost, it's not worth casting it just to keep it up there. That's a waste. So Glacial Spike comes into play, and this is amazing for single target and 2 target cleave. Absolutely amazing. And what's it going to do? It's going to conjure a massive spike of ice and merges your current icicles into it. It impales your target, dealing heavy damage, guys, already. Plus the damage that is stored in the icicles. So any of the damage that you do within these 5 icicles, alright, you're going to build 1, 2, 3... This ability is not active until you get all 5. So there's all 5. Now it said it's going to do 90,000 or 92,000. Now it's going to pull them all together and 281,000. Alright, so it took the damage of those and then it also crit on top of it. Huge spike damage out of this. And it's just 5 casts of Frostbolt to end up getting it back up. Do you have to cast it right away? No. You can time it to where it's going to line up with other abilities. If you're using Bone Chilling, you can let it stack, you know, once it gets stacked up, or if you need one more cast to get it capped out, cast it. Because that other frost, you're not losing that icicle damage. That icicle will end up taking off because you can only have 5 at one point in time. Glacial Spikes, way to go. Good damage. And then there's Comet Storm. Comet Storm's pretty decent, guys. It's on a 30-second cooldown. It's instant. Calls down a series of 7 icy comets on and around the target, each of which deals minor frost damage to all enemies within 4 yards of its impact. And it's, again, it's just it's a flavor deal, and there you go. There's a bunch of ice. Does very damage. But if you don't want to end up playing with Glacial Spikes because you like seeing your icicles fly off and you like having control of it with your Ice Lance instead, Comet Storm may be the way to go, or Thermal Void, depending on which one you think will end up playing better. Again, it's all going to be based on how your playstyle is, but currently, Glacial Spike, to me, is the top. And with this, guys, we are actually going to move on to the Artifact. Alright, welcome to Ebb and Chill, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, a staff. Fire's got their sword, so Frost has got a staff, Arcane's got a staff. But what's this thing look like? Well, you see it. It's alright. It's a decent looking staff. It's got a neat look. Ebb and Chill itself, fairly bland, but then you get in the Guardian's Focus, the next tier down. We'll let this bad boy spin around so you can get a better look at it. And it starts looking really good. All of them look really good. I mean, that looks way more like a fire spec, but hey, it'd be kind of cool to dress up like a fire mage and cast frostbolts, right? And then you got Flow of the First. That sounds awfully dirty, but this makes me think more monk or shaman. This is very interesting, but it is it's got a monk and shaman feel to it. Still looks really good. Nice looking piece. And then your PvP ones, the Archmagi's Will, and this thing is nice. I mean, it's got a very Mist of Pandaria look to it, but it is a nice looking piece. Let it spin around. Come on, baby. But as you can see, pretty decent looking. There's nothing really bad about the appearance on this, and there's still better looking artifacts out there. You'll end up seeing the Retribution. If you've seen the Retribution Paladin one, Ashbringer has some really nice looking pieces, really nice looking skins, and there's a couple others out there that really match that feel also. But guys, we are going to go into the artifact traits. Ebb and Chill, Great Staff of Alodai. So this is the Frost piece, staff, whatever you want to call it. But this is your artifact ability. You do have a Frost artifact relic slot, Arcane slot, and another locked Frost slot. Okay, you're seeing the flow. If you've seen any of my other videos, you'll see the exact same kind of flow. And then you've got Ebb and Bolt. We talked about this already in the abilities, but this is going to do a really good amount of Shadow Frost damage, and grants 2 charges of Fingers of Frost. Helpful, very helpful. Shattering Bolt is your first step. After you end up getting this is your free ability that you get, and it increases the critical strike chance of Frostbolt by 15%. Not bad. This is another reason why I say Haste Mastery is going to take over this spec, because Frostbolt being your main cast ability, and your other one being Ice Lance, which you're going to use under Fingers of Frost, it's going to crit already. Frostbolt critting is just going to increase the damage on your icicles, so yeah, we'll just go ahead and go from there. And we'll start off with Let It Go. Anybody see the Frozen reference here? Come on. Rank 2 of 3, usually it would be 1, 2, and 3, but it will be increase the critical strike damage of Ice Lance by 1 or 5, 10, and 15%. And basically the way this is going to work out, guys, is this is the crit damage on top. So when you use Fingers of Frost, this is just additional damage on that Ice Lance after you cast it. Really nice to end up seeing extra damage. Ice 9, rank 0 of 1. Frostbolt has a chance to generate 2 icicles. Cool. Double. I mean, even if you get double, again, icicles are going to fire off any multiples anyways, so might as well. Shield of Alodai, rank 0 of 3. Increased damage absorbed by Ice Barrier by 33%, 66, and then probably 100. Or 99. It's hard telling. This is one of those abilities that may have a staggered amount in the percentage, but increased defensives, guys, it's going to be nice. First, Golden Dragon. Yay, golden tickets. Black Ice. Rank 0 of 1. Passive. Ebb and Chill has a chance to empower icicles, increasing damage done by 100%. Yeah? Okay. So double damage icicles? We can do this. This is going to play out real nice, and this is going to be a constant. I mean, this is part of your main rotation. It's going to build up, so this is constant increased damage. Even if it is a chance, this is still part of your main rotation. It's not based on a cooldown like some of them you've seen in prior videos. Good damage build. And then you've got Frozen Veins, rank 0 of 3. Frostbolt critical strikes reduce the remaining cooldown on Icy Veins by 0.5 seconds. So 0.5, 1 second, and 1.5. Pretty simple. And what this is going to turn into, guys, is just more time having your Icy Veins up, your main cooldown. Because on a 3-minute cooldown, you're going to want to end up getting that brought down. The only cooldown you got left, unless you spec into, you know, like I do with mages or mirror images. Sorry, not mages. It's going to end up helping out quite a bit. And then you got clarity of thought. I wish I had some more of that because sometimes I'm in left field. Rank 0 of 3. Frostbolt has an additional 3% chance to activate Brain Freeze. Thank you. So 3, 6, and 9%, and that just means more Frozen Orb action. Orbital Strike, 0 of 3. Increase damage done by Frozen Orb by 10%. Alright, so I'm seeing a chain here. Are you? So 10, 20, 30%, extra 30% on Frozen Orb is going to be outstanding, especially if you end up getting more procs off of it. Just a nice piece to end up going with. And then we're on second Golden Dragon. Chilled to the core. 0 of 1. Activating Icy Veins encases you in ice, increasing frost damage you deal by 20%. Cool. I mean, that's an additional 20% damage off of the haste buff already. You're already racking out some damage. If you take this and you end up running Icy Veins and then the Void Ray, you know, it's going to work real nice together. And I'm sure people are going to find some great ways to synergize this. And then the next one's going to be Ice Age. My kids love this movie. I mean, rank 0 of 3. Passive increases the critical strike damage of Frozen Orb by 15%. So 15, 30, and 45. And that's the critical strike damage, not the chance, guys. So if it crits, it's going to do even more damage. If the targets are frozen or have a frozen effect to them that's going to make it crit, this is going to be awesome. Increases, let's see, Icy Hand, 0-1. Increases the maximum charges of Fingers of Frost by 1. Alright, so you can have up to 3. That's always nice, just in case you accidentally get that additional proc. Doesn't happen too often, but hey. And then Icy Caress, rank 0 of 3. Increases damage dealt by Frostbolt by 3%. 3, 6, and 9. It's cold outside. Baby, 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 it's cold outside. Last Golden Dragon, guys. Rank 0 of 1. Your Water Elemental's Water Bolt has a 10% chance to generate a charge of Fingers of Frost. Lonely Winter, Frostbolt, Ice Lance, Frozen Orb, and Icicles deal an additional 4% increased damage. Another reason why I see the Water Elemental actually being more important than Lonely Winter, but Lonely Winter is going to be more bursty. It's a real hard toss-up, guys, but Fingers of Frost being out, that's a good chunk of your damage right there. And then you've got Jouster. 0 of 3. When Ice Lance deals damage, you take 3% less damage for 6 seconds. 0 of 3, so it's going to be 3, 6, and 9. Awesome. I mean, really, reduced damage is nice all the time. 9% reduced damage because you're constantly going to be using Ice Lance if you get the procs. It's going to be great in PvP. This is a good way to end up passively reducing your damage during kite phases. You know, if you got to kite somebody, there's a good way to end up looking at it. And then you've got Chain Reaction. Rank 0 of 1. Frostbolt, critical strikes, empower Ice Lance, increasing damage dealt by 30%. So if you crit with Frostbolt, where'd it go? Right there. Okay, main ability. If you crit with Frostbolt, it's going to increase the next Ice Lance by 30%. Not a lot, but still, it's good. It'll end up working. And then you've got the Storm Rages. 0 of 3. Increases the critical strike chance of Blizzard by 5, 10, or 15%. Really, it's got a good tree to it, guys. A lot of damage increases through this. You can see which way I'm starting to go because I really feel getting to this one first is going to be better than the others. This one's going to be way out of my range for a long time. But with that, guys, it is time for us to get to what everybody likes to see, and that is the gameplay. And here it is, the Frost Mage, guys, doing some gameplay with it. What are we looking at here? Well, obviously what you're looking at is, one, you want to end up keeping your pet alive. That is a main priority if you're running with the pet. If you're running Lonely Winter, then duke it out by yourself, man. Who cares? But I did go bone chilling on this. And you're going to see that it's stacking up in the right-hand corner with the rest of your buffs. You're going to see it stacking to 16, which is going to give me an 8% increase on damage. So what did I go with what did I go with on top of this? I did go mirror images. So boss fight situation, guys, completely single target boss fight. You're going to want to open up with your mirror images, or at least the way that I played it out. Open it up with your mirror images, open it up with your icy veins, and then go straight into an ebb and bolt. And the reason for this is because it's going to be a good initial damage, and then you're going to be able to toss out your ice lances because of your 2 Fingers of Frost charges that you just got, and then frostbolt, frozen orb, frostbolt rotation. Fairly generic spec, guys. You'll see where the countdown is on this priority list, and you're going to end up casting Frostbolt and building up charges of Icicles. Your Icicles at this point are going to get up to 5, and at that point is when Glacial Spikes becomes the higher of the priority. Now you don't want to drop your stacks, so this is where the weaving play comes in. You're going to want to cast Glacial Spike and then go back to Frostbolt, and then if you've got a charge of Fingers of Frost, you're going to want to go into Ice Lance and then back into Frostbolt, and then Frostbolt is going to interlay all the way through and through. And if you get it to where it synergizes just right, you're going to see that you're playing it back and forth, and you're doing a very good amount of damage playing through this. And then you'll get back up to the point to where you're needing to cast Glacial Spike again because you're back to 5 Icicles. Cast it, and most of the time by the second one, you'll be right back up to 16 stacks. You'll be able to do as much damage as you need to. An additional 8% damage on top of Glacial Spikes, and not to mention all the Icicles that you're generating are also going to have that 8% increase due to Frostbolt. Really good damage, guys. Solid build up, but you gotta play with it. Now, if you gotta end up doing too much movement, you're gonna lose this. That's where Ice Flows comes in handy. Cast your Ice Flows, and you can basically end up moving and then, cast it again if you need to, and just get the hell out of stuff, but you'll keep this buff up. The hardest part about this side of it was keeping that buff up, because 6 seconds, that's not a lot of time to move and then cast something that's going to end up taking almost 2 seconds on its own. So just remember that, guys. If you're going to end up doing this, make sure that you know how to control this buff, and it's nice. The other way you can end up playing is with Ray of Frost, and again, if you're using Ray of Frost, you're going to want to try and time this thing to more or less line up with Icy Veins when it's either off cooldown or when it comes back off cooldown. Being on a 1 minute, that means you're going to end up having 2 that you can cast without it. Or, sorry, you're going to end up casting 1 with it, and then you'll end up casting another without it, and then by the time the third one comes back up, because it's 3 minutes, you're going to end up having another set. So, it's going to do a ton of damage with Ray of Frost, guys, and it's just stand there and channel and let it do its thing. If you got to move, guess what? You're screwed, but if it's within that 10 seconds, you can still kind of peter out a little bit of damage, because it doesn't completely set the cooldown until after the 10 seconds. So you can move a little bit and then recast if need be to get back into the channel. Just a little thing that I learned while I was playing this. Nice little trick, but if you got to move at all, it's not worth it, and Bone Chilling to me takes over. Lonely Winter, if you hate your water elemental that bad, then that's the way it ends up going with it. Now, the other thing is how to end up using your water elemental correctly. You're going to want to end up making sure that if it's off cooldown, Water Jet, if Water Jet is off cooldown on your pet, you're going to want to control this to try and cast it when you have 0 Fingers of Frost, and you're going to want to cast it right at the end of where you're casting Frostbolt. The reason for this is because you can automatically get up to 2 Fingers of Frost charges by doing it this way during that little short window, and that's going to also improve your damage through Fingers of Frost and your Ice Lance damage. Works nice, guys. It works very, very nice, and it's something that again, it takes time and control to end up going through and doing it, but you don't want to end up casting this right at the beginning of Frostbolt unless you got a really high amount of haste, and if that's the case, you're more than likely, you're going to be geared enough, this shit already. But let's go ahead and skip on past this, because, again, Frost is a touch-and-go spec. You really need to learn a lot of the different mechanic pieces to it, and these are just some tips that I can end up giving you from playing. With AoE, okay, obviously Frozen Orb, that's a main bread and butter, even though it does hit fairly light now. The other thing is making sure that you cast Blizzard over the top of them for a couple reasons. One, you cast Blizzard, it's going to be an AoE that sits over them for 8 seconds. As long as they don't have to end up moving, it's going to be in that area. The other reason is it stacks bone chilling. Your stacks quick. Every mob that's in there is going to get a stack of chilled. Alright? And it's going to build you up very quickly. And then you can just go into a single target rotation, keeping it up every few, keeping Blizzard up every few seconds. Whenever it comes off cooldown, it's right at a 6 or 7 second cooldown. You can end up tossing it back up for the AoE and just go to town. Now that's if you're doing, I would say 4 to 5 or more targets. That would work the best. If it's 2 to 3 single target rotation, guys, with splitting ice, and you're going to end up cleaving off, doing just enough damage anyways, and there's no real point. Just focus fire on one, and then you'll end up figuring it out from there on which one to go to next. Fairly simple. But guys, this is what the gameplay is going to look like, and you can just see the way that it's played out, how well it's going to be. Is it the funnest spec on the planet? No. Especially if during the spec, the way that they've got fire playing right now, it's absolutely, this is a fun spec. You've got a lot that you can end up doing, but currently it does not beat out fire, in my opinion, for this spec and how fun they're playing. With that, guys, let's take a look at some of the damage. Alright, so here we are, guys, taking a look at some of the damage, and this is going to be Dargirl the Underking, which is the last boss in Neltharion's Lair. And I wanted to show you this one before we swap to another. You can see where Glacial Spike, this thing it crit almost 50% of the time. Really good damage coming out of this, guys. And as you can see, huge damage. One of the hits actually ended up cleaving off, though, to the Molten guy that he ends up summoning. Then you'll end up seeing that one also. But if you look, you can actually see Glacial Spikes. Again, huge damage, and this is all the damage that it's doing. Average is 206k is what it ended up hitting for. That is a very high amount, but that's the initial damage that it shows you in the tooltip, plus all the icicles that you end up building up. You can see Icicle only shows 15 hits here, but that's because of how many times I actually overcast from 5 icicles on, and then they end up firing off. Now we have Frostbolt being in second place, obvious, because it is our main spam ability. 52 casts on that bad boy. The only thing that beat it was the Water Bolt from your Elemental. And then you've got Ice Lance. Again, you're looking at those Fingers of Frost procs, general damage that you're getting out of them, really huge. There's your top 3 of almost every fight. Now, then you've got your Mages. And I just got to cast Mages again. As you can see, it's 2 minutes and 15 seconds. This would have ended up going up a little bit higher, but Mages are hitting like absolutely bonkers hard. So this is something to think about, guys, because really 3.6 almost 4% uptime, or 3.5% uptime, let's round it down, and it's doing that much damage really well. Now you've got Ebon Bolt. Ebon Bolt doesn't do a lot. We got 3 casts off with it, 106,000 each time. Didn't crit, nothing like that. I don't think it can crit. I could be wrong with this, but I don't think it can crit, because I've never seen it actually marked on there, or it was just bad RNG. And then you've got Unstable Magic. Again, single target, this is almost 4% of your damage. Really, for single target, this is the best one in the tier, like I was talking. And then you've got Icicle. We talked about that. These are only the casts that went by. Normally, if you don't go with Glacial Spike, this will be up here just under Frostbolt, more than likely. Or just under Ice Lance, but it'll end up putting up a lot extra damage. Wrath of Elun's just a trinket, and then Frozen Orb hits like a wet fucking noodle. It's not there for any reason except for AoE. Now, this will end up changing once you end up getting some artifact power and you get built into some of the other traits that we had talked about. But currently, this thing doesn't work worth a damn. I wish it would fix the travel on it. And Frozen Orb it's been gutted, guys, unfortunately. Now, there is another one that I want to end up going over. I want to go over Rockmora, which is the first boss in this dungeon. And what are we looking at? Hold on, let me get situated here. Ice Lance actually took over. Now, this is due to the splitting ice. You can see Rockmora ends up bringing those little spider creatures down. And you can end up seeing quite well that, okay, I cast it 14 times and it hit 23 because it was cleaving off of them. And 51,000 is not a bad number. And 87% crit, well, hey, they don't crit all the time. They get that 50% increased chance. But still, guys, really good, solid damage all the way through. And this is due to splitting ice, guys, because Ice Lance just hits like a truck on both targets. Frostbolt's way up there. Glacial Spikes, again, it can end up cleaving due to splitting ice also. Really good damage, guys. So just keep that in mind. If you're doing single target, this is not exactly the best spec, but if you're doing 1 or 2 targets where you're doing cleave, Frost Mage is going to own it up yet again. And they're still doing really good single target, but cleave fights, they're doing a hell of a lot better than most specs. Okay, I take that back. They're doing right about the same, but still, Ice Lance is going to take over. It's a really, guys, what I can say is Blizzard's done a hell of a good job at balancing, and they're still going through and doing tuning and trying to get the rest of it fixed. It's working out good, and I'm glad to see that this thing is not as low as it was the first time I reviewed it. As always, I hope you enjoyed yourself. If you did, you know what to do. Hit that like button, slap that share button, or whatever. Subscribe, whichever you need to end up doing, guys. If you disliked it, dislike it. But one thing I do want to mention is I hope you enjoyed yourself, and as always, thanks for watching.